thanks a lot, Fabian, and also thanks a lot to our panelists. I guess these were some really great insights, and I hope you really enjoyed the discussions and the thought-provoking input we just got. And let's quickly dive into the next topic. Let's go from platforms to building SMEs. Our next speaker is Lukas Zörner. He is the Chief Product Officer of Penta. The Penta story started back in 2017, so almost 4 years ago. And their idea really in the beginning was to develop a business bank account that can be opened completely online and within minutes. Fast forward today in 2021, they're powering more than 30,000 business banks, and they have more than 140 Pentonians, so more than 140 employees. And we'll be talking about the myths of SME banking and how to debunk them or how to potentially debunk them. And it's a pleasure to have you here, Lukas, and we're really looking forward to your insight. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Kim, for the nice moderation, and I'm really happy to be here. Let me quickly share some slides here in 1 second. Let's hope that this works without a problem. You should be seeing now the screen and the slides, and I think I'm ready to go. So as Kim mentioned, my name is Lukas Zörner. I'm the Chief Product Officer here at Penta, been there since the beginning, and helped build up Penta now to what it is today, namely a digital financial platform for SMEs. So we go from banking and lending products over to accounting and expense management products. So all of the troubles that SMEs are facing today, we are aiming to cover on one single unified platform. Today, we've got already over 30,000 customers who have joined us on our mission, who are using our platform on a daily basis. And they're really using not only parts of the platform, but they start to use it more and more as a whole. And today, I'm tackling a couple of myths with you in the SME banking that are floating around, and I think that they shouldn't anymore. So let's dive right in with the first one, namely good cop versus bad cop, David versus Goliath. No matter how you call it, it's always the big dark players on the market fighting against the young, shiny startups. But is this really still the case? Or is this an outdated way of thinking, an outdated way of working that we have seen in the past, but which is not actually present anymore? From our perspective, what we see very clearly is, I've answered this question myself. I do believe the narrative is outdated. Yes, there is competition nowadays, but it's shifting more and more towards collaboration, towards working together with other partners and providers. And it's about partnerships and collaboration at the end of the day. And this is the only true if the providers that we're talking to or the partners that we're talking to actually did the right thing over the last couple of years and actually did invest into infrastructure, into technology, into upscaling their APIs. Because only then we can see two things happening. On the one side, we see the technical readiness, which is, in my view, always solvable. But even more important is the mental readiness to actually accept that the times have shifted, that the time has changed. And it's more and more important to actually collaborate with other players, but also with other banks on the market. And in our view, looking at the market, looking at the trends and what we see both on the market, but also for us at Penta ourselves, it's more and more about APIs, about marketplaces, about providing products on a platform to our customers that are coming from other financial players. In the past, this has been, of course, very much focused on fintechs. Our collaboration with Iboca would be one example of this, or also other smaller lending providers. But we do see the interest of more and more established providers talking with us and trying to figure out how could we collaborate so that we can sell their products in our marketplace with one goal that we've always got in mind, making sure we can offer the right products to our customers at the right point in time, in the right place. And we believe this place is Penta. And I have to say that this has all shifted though over the last couple of years. When I look back 4 or 5 years ago, there was always the small ones. Penta also was very early. In particular, SME banking was not yet a thing. Everybody focused on the hype around retail banking, being it a Revolut, being it a number 26. And this shift over the last 4 years is really phenomenal and has, in my view, debunked myth number 1, that it's David versus Goliath. I wouldn't even call it David and Goliath. I think it's different players on a market collaborating in a good partnership level together. And this brings us smoothly to the second topic, which I like personally quite a lot, because in my view, innovation is everything. But too many people and too many companies get lost in what I would call the innovation theater. So people on stage talking about innovation, new products coming out. And when you then read the press announcement and the press releases, you can count the number of times the press release mentions actual customers with one hand. And in most cases, you can't even count it at all. So you see a big shift towards new products that are launched, new services that are launched, great collaborations. But the one thing that is never there, or in rare cases there, is actually the focus on the end customer. And I don't believe in just innovating for innovation's sake. I do believe that there's no added value in it. I think, and we need to be clear around this, you need to define very early on what does success look like. And the way we do it is it should always start, but also end with a reference to the end customer, the people who are actually using the product. This also can, and I want to be clear around this, internal customers, your customer support staff, your AML and compliance staff, but also the end customer who is using a product at the end of the day. But you need to make sure that you're not just building up fancy terms, fancy teams who are starting to work on topics that will never actually see the light of day, because nobody has thought about the customer and the consequence. And especially when it comes to the SME sector, the tricky piece here is, in our view, SMEs are much, much more difficult to serve than retail customers. Because when you look at SMEs, the sheer amount of different industries a customer can come from, 100, 200 industries that you can be. You could be a carpenter, you could be an online business, you could be something. Yes, all of them need a standalone bank account and perhaps some cards. But when it then comes around the real value creation, you need to be very careful that you look at which target customer group you're looking at. Because selling a loan product to a young company, they most likely won't be able to get the loan in today's environment. But at the same time, if you provide a platform without a loan, more established companies will not be able to come to you. So instead of now just building random products, it's so key that actually one focuses on what's really important, and that is looking at the target customer group, understanding their problems, and solving this with all the knowledge that one has in mind together. And perhaps funnily enough, me as a fintech saying that you don't necessarily have to be a first mover is something that often brings up the eyebrows. I believe it's much, much more important to really understand the customer problem than being a first mover. We see with a couple of fintech providers globally that they have a good start, but at one point they lost the real trace and track around understanding what's the customer problem and started bringing out new features and new tools and new products, but ultimately started to get away from their customer group. And that means for me, understand the customers, but don't necessarily be a first mover. And when we look at this from a larger perspective, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Can SME banking be profitable? I do believe it can be, and it actually has to be, because SMEs for us are the backbone of the German economy, of the European economy, of the global economy. We've seen with Corona the impact things have when the local business is not allowed to open. For you as an end customer, for the people in the store, for the employees, for the owners of the store, it's detrimental to not only the economy, but to the way of working and the way of living. So I do believe in order to serve these customers well, you need to monetize. You need to be able to kind of provide products to customers and make sure that you can monetize. But when you monetize, it's not about making the most money or making the fast money. It's around actually building for the long-term sake. And I think this is something that we often hear, but there's no money in SME banking for small SMEs. And when we then get into discussions, being at traditional banks, being at other players on the market, and you go a couple of levels deeper, you will always realize that it comes down to them building products that haven't been built with a customer in mind, or even worse, products that have been built to actually benefit from a customer's mishap, from a missituation. This is both true for the retail situation, but also in particular for small and medium-sized SMEs. So by building products together with customers, by involving them in the customer research process, in the discovery process, but also in the business case process, to price a product properly is something that I do believe is crucial, because otherwise you lose the long-term trust. And once you do this, you will end up in a situation where you start monetizing, or where you start pushing the short-term needs over the long-term goals. And in a fast-changing environment like the banking industry and the SME banking industry where we are right now, where every year there's so much change, it does not make sense to think short-term. You need to believe that you're solving a problem for SMEs in the long run and look at the long-term monetization potential of it and build the products and solutions together with your customer. Otherwise, this is not going to work, because once transparency and trust are gone, once you try to hide fees, once you try to sneak some fees in, it's very difficult to repair. In most of the cases, it's not even possible anymore, and opens up the market for different participants. And if you then say there's no money in SME banking, well, then I get it. Otherwise, I wouldn't. So what does the future bring? And this is to wrap up now. When we look even a step further, I do believe there are three big themes in the market. And the first one is, and I want to start with this one, sustainability is a key matter for customers. I do believe that sustainability is not just a hype. It's not something that Trust Tomorrow Bank does and it will go away. It's not something that you can just put into your yearly annual accounts and say you're doing something around sustainability. I do believe the banking industry has a fundamental opportunity right now to be a driver for sustainability. We've seen announcements by BlackRock around how important they also think it is from a shareholder's perspective. And I do believe what we've seen in the last 10, 15 years around digitalization, sustainability is right now one of the new trends and topics that are there for our planet, that in particular in the banking industry, which is touching everyday's customers' interaction, that is touching the financing of new products, it will be a key driver. And the ones who get this right and who are smart about it and start actually innovating on this front already today, they will be seeing significant upsides. They will see happier customers. They will see customers who believe actually the story that we are telling end customers around the long-term play. And being CO2 neutral, I think, is a start, not only for the own operations of the business, but the way we can drive change as a financial industry in this particular topic. The second topic is, for me, ultimately the banking as a service offering. So when we look at banking as a service from Solaris Bank over to Raisin Bank and all of the players on the market, these specialized providers, together with leading banks who are actually willing to embrace the change, and other technology providers which are coming there, being this, for example, Banksware, which is now on the market, who kind of combines all the pieces of that, they are creating the new infrastructure, the new pipeline and the new rails of the offering, and will allow a much, much better and granular embedding into the processes of larger companies and larger SMEs, which will be a key driver for the SMEs themselves, but also for the ways they will be able to provide products to their customers. And then lastly, and this is why we are in business, of course, the curated platform offerings. Players like us, again, leading banks and companies who are really believing into it, that they can be a platform for the end customers where they use their products that they want, seamlessly integrated. This level of new user experience does not exist yet today. Penta is also not 100% there yet. We have made a very strong progress. We have made a very good first step into this direction and are now doubling down into really benefiting from that. We've got our partnerships with companies like LexOffice, with Datev, but also with lending providers like Ivoca. And in the future, we can go even a step further, work together with insurance providers. We've had the chat just now was with Christian Macht, who is providing via his company Element new products on the insurance side. Penta can be a perfect player for these type of offerings because we've got the contact with the end customer. We are providing the platform, and bringing all of these things together is what we believe the future of SME banking will be all about. And with that, thanks a lot for having the time, and back to you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Lukas. That was almost on point. And thank you for not only debunking three myths that I guess are quite popular, especially when we look at discussions that are currently being held, but also showing us some insights into how the future of SME banking might look like. Good luck with all your future endeavors. Thanks for being here.